In this video, we'll have an overview of this menu Add with Shift-A here, but we will not go into the meshes, but discover all the rest of the objects here in Blender. So I will just select everything and remove everything with A and X, okay? And I will just add here my curve objects like I did for the last demonstration. So I will just make a GX, okay, and Shift A, add a circle, and GX again, and Shift A, add another circle, okay, and GX. So you will have like these different objects, and these objects are managed differently than a circle that we had in the beginning, okay? So in the circle that we had in the beginning, it was full of vertices, but this one, if I go into edit mode, I will have here some manipulators, okay? So curves are managed like that with manipulators. So you will have this kind of option. Same for the curve here. If I go into edit mode, you can see that now I have this kind of manipulator that I can select, rotate, and make the shape of my curve different here. But we will have a full chapter about all the curves in Blender. Okay, so I will select everything there. We will not spend too much time on this. Here for the surface, honestly, it's something I never used in Blender, but for some reason it's still here. I guess some people have some usability about it. So I just here give you a few examples of how it can be. It's just the same kind of manipulation that I just did show you here, but with bigger possibilities. Like here you will have really a basic shape that will give you the possibility to edit just this part of the object like that, and it will follow, for example, okay? So for me, it's not really handy because you cannot really control the details of each object, so I don't, that's why maybe I don't use it a lot, but basically it works like that, okay? But honestly, we will not use surfaces during the training. Metaballs are a little interesting, and I will just add a few here like this. You can see a little how it works. So with GX here and Shift A capsule here with GX again. So what is good with metaballs is that when you start to cross themselves, you will have here one object. They will kind of stick to each other, okay? You can see something like that, kind of liquid interaction, I would say, something like this. And so you can duplicate object and make some kind of crazy stuff very easily and very quickly, okay? So if I select that one and make a Shift D, you can see that, okay? And you have different shapes by default. For example, let's take the cube here, and now if I take my cube and move it, if it wants to be selected, okay, with the Z wireframe here, I can select it here, okay? And, oh, sorry, come back there. Thank you. And now I can move my cube, and as you can see, it will interact like that. So to create a global shape very quickly with the different objects, it's very quick and efficient. Sometimes I use it for just create a basic shape for sculpting, for example. So if I want to sculpt a bust or something like that, I will just add a few of these objects, and I will use them after for start sculpting, okay? So it can be interesting to use metaballs sometimes. It's not something I use every day too, huh? So okay, for this here with Shift A, with the text option, you will have the possibility to add a text. Into the text option there, you will have the possibility to manage a font if you want to change the font, to manage the extrude with the geometry here. So if you want to make a 3D text very quick, and if you want to go into edit mode, you can just manage it like that. So it can be very interesting to add some text into your scene like this, and after you can just manage it like an object. So edit mode, you edit it, and just after with tab, and just you come back after with the object mode, and you can move it as an object like this. Okay, so that's it for the text. We will have a full video about that anyway. So I will remove this one, and with Shift A you have the possibility to add a grease pencil. So grease pencil is kind of 2D object but works into the 3D space. It's kind of strokes like this, and you can manage the strokes and manage this kind of objects with a full new mode in Blender. So when you make a new here, you have the possibility to go into 2D animation, and you will have a full 2D animation here layout. But it's really specific, and we will focus on this. We will focus on this training on really 3D and not too much 2D if possible. I think all of these things would deserve at least one entire training just for that, because there are a lot of options and a lot of possibilities of animation. But if you want to know more about it, don't hesitate to search for Grease Pencil 2.8, and you will have a lot of interesting stuff. So with Shift A here you can add an armature. So an armature basically it's a kind of skeleton that you add inside your object. So let's say you have a kind of an arm, and you would like to animate it, so you will create a kind of skeleton inside the arm, and you will make the articulations like this. So let's say here it will be my elbow, here it will be my hand and everything, and like this I can just manage my character just with a kind of skeleton like this, okay, that will have some deform influence into the object I will create. So these two, we will have a full chapter about that, armatures and rigging. So for that one, it was the armature. The lattice here, it's an object that can deform other objects. So let's take, for example, a Suzanne. Okay, and I will put it in the center here, and I will add an armature around, not an armature, sorry, a lattice around Suzanne. So I will go into edit mode, select everything, and scale it up with S. Like this, I will have a full lattice here. I can change the resolution of my lattice, for example, okay, and I can go and create a modifier into Suzanne, okay, and this modifier will be a lattice. Good, and we will choose the lattice we did just create, and as you can see now, the lattice has some influence into my object. So now if I take for example my lattice into edit mode and select everything and do Alt S and scale it down, I will have the basic shape of my Suzanne by default, okay? But if I take only one here and move it, I will have a kind of deformation into my Suzanne like that, and I can just deform the basic shape of my Suzanne just with a lattice around like this. So it can be sometimes useful to have something non-destructive into your object like that. So it can be good to use lattice sometimes. For empty, it's an empty. Empty is empty. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy. Empty, it's an object that will not be rendered into the 3D view. That's why we call it empty, because when you will make a render here, this object will not appear. It's just something that you will have into the 3D view, and that can be used as a manipulator, for example. So let's say, for example, you will have a few objects like, for example, UV sphere here, okay? And I will scale down this UV sphere. I will remove this empty, and I will show you more about this too. I will make a Shift D to duplicate my sphere here, okay? And I will make, okay, Mickey Mouse kind of shape. And this object is composed by 3 objects, okay? So I have Mickey Mouse that is composed with 3 spheres here, and if I move a sphere, it will move only the sphere, but not the other. But if I parent everything to an empty, so let's say I take an empty here, and this empty will be a cube, okay? And I will take this one, this one, this one, and that one. If I make a control P, I will can parent my object to the last object selected. And like this, now if I take my object and move, everyone will follow, but I can still take them separately and move them. So if I want to move everything, I take the empty and everyone will follow. And if I want to make a bigger ear, for example, it will work. Okay, so this kind of thing is very useful. And as you can see, if I add a camera into my scene here and put it into the right orientation, that we can see a little what's happening into here the right view. And I will just add a light here to have some light into our scene. So if I make a render now with F12, you can see that only my objects will appear, but not the I will make my light a little stronger because we did see absolutely nothing. So maybe something like that, okay, with an F12, and we can see our objects here, but not the empty that will not appear into the render, okay? So the empties has several here shapes, but it's just shapes that give you the opportunity to select it more easily. You have the possibility to add some image for references image, and this I will show you how to manage that when we will start to model the robot. So it will be into the next chapter. Here you have different kind of lights, and you can add different kind of lights into your scene. So basically by default it's a point, but you have sun, spot, area, etc. So we will have a full chapter about lighting and shading. Same for light probes. And camera here can be interesting because sometimes you want to have you have this view from the camera, let's say, okay, and if you want to add another camera, okay, and to have the same view as what you want into with this camera, so let's say I will put this camera there and make the right rotation. There is something more easy to manage this, but let's say you have two point of view that you would like to keep, okay, and this point of view you can manage them. So I have this point of view here and this point of view there. And to switch cameras like I did, I just select the camera and I do Control 0, okay, and like this I can just select the other camera and make Control 0, and I have my camera view and can make a render directly from this view, okay. And what is good is that you can have several cameras if you make a studio or something like that, and different angles of views that you can save. And like this, you will not have to move your camera around always and to find something that is similar to the angle of view that you want. You have a good angle, okay, you keep it. And that's what is good with this system. You can add several cameras into your view, into your scene. So what is good too with cameras, so with the one that is selected, if you take an angle of view like that you're happy with into the 3D view, like for example this one, you may Control Alt 0 and you will have directly this view into the camera. And as you did see, my camera did move. So if I want the other side, like for example here, Control Alt 0 and my camera did move the other side, okay. So it can be interesting to manage it like that too. So for the cameras, we will have a full overview later about the camera settings. For the speakers, if you want to add some sound into a scene, like for example a car that will cross a road of or yeah, something like that, so you will put a sound into an engine sound into the car, and like this you will have a kind of 3D effect when it will cross the street in front of you. Okay, for the force fields, you have a lot of options here. It will affect everything that is related with simulation. So let's say if I add here a mesh, a monkey, and that I put a little particle system on it to can have some little particles that will fall down with the gravity of Blender by default here. Okay, so nothing crazy, just a little particle scene like that. But if I add here, for example, a force field wind, let's say, and then I put the wind with something stronger, so you can see my wind that is here and the direction of the wind here, so it kind of slow down a little the particles. But if I go into my settings, you can see that I can increase the strength of the wind, for example this way. Okay, and you can see that my particles will go up now, and I can change, for example, the noise of my wind if I want more noise. As you can see now, they go more and more in different directions. I can change the direction of my wind too, if I want my wind to go this way or whatever. And it's only with the wind, but we have a lot of options of force field here. You have force, you have vortex if you want to make kind of hurricane effect and increase the strength there. You can see that it will create kind tornado effect here. So things like that are very powerful too for simulations, and you can play with it too. Here, for example, you can manage turbulences here. So if you increase the strength of it, you will have some turbulence, and the noise amount here, and the size a little, and the flow too. So you can see that now my particles will move a little like that, so it can be interesting. I will increase the size, yeah, and you can see something interesting happening now. So all of these options, you can we will find them into the physics relationship, into the simulations chapter. Okay, so for now it was just a little demonstration of how it works. So for now I will just remove this and remove my object and go into the beginning of the animation there, and I will just Shift A, collection instance. So if you want to add a new, if you have a lot of objects into a collection, you can search them directly from the collection and add it again into your scene. So it can be interesting too sometimes. So that's it for the entire here add menu that you can call with Shift A. Don't forget this one, it will be very useful during the training. And we will have an overview of the basic manipulations in Blender. So we will start to move and rotate and scale all our objects.